Alan Carter loved the ocean more than anything else in the world. For 15 years, he had studied the biggest predators of Earth's waters. He could tell you everything about great white sharks, killer whales, and giant squids. People called him crazy for swimming with these dangerous animals, but Alan always said that understanding was better than fear. On a normal Tuesday morning, Alan was checking his equipment on a small boat off the coast of Maine when a bright light appeared in the sky. The light grew bigger and brighter until it stopped right above his boat. Alan covered his eyes as the light became too intense. When he looked again, 3 tall figures stood on his boat. They had blue skin that shimmered like water. Their eyes were large and black with no white parts. They had long fingers with webbing between them. They wore silver suits that seemed to move like liquid. "Dr. Alan Carter," said the tallest one in perfect English. "I am Zinthar of the Veldari. We represent the Galactic Council. We have been watching your work with Earth's ocean predators." Alan dropped the oxygen tank he was holding. His heart raced, but he kept his face calm. Years of swimming with sharks had taught him not to show fear. "How do you know my name?" he asked. "We have studied your planet for many years," Zinthar said. "The Galactic Council has great interest in Earth's unique ecosystem, particularly your predator species." The second alien stepped forward. "Your work with dangerous marine life is impressive. No other researcher on your planet has spent as much time with live apex predators as you have." Alan nodded slowly. "It's just about respect. You respect them, learn their behaviors, and they usually leave you alone." The aliens looked at each other with what Alan thought might be surprise. "We have a proposal for you, Dr. Carter," Zinthar said. "The Galactic Council has established a research station deep in your ocean. We study dangerous species from across the galaxy there. We would like you to join us as an expert on Earth predators." Alan's mind raced with questions. Why me? There are many marine biologists on Earth, but none who swim with killers, said the third alien, speaking for the first time. None who touch a great white shark and live to record the data. Alan thought about this. It was true that his methods were unusual. Most researchers studied predators from the safety of cages or boats. Alan preferred a more direct approach. "What exactly would I be doing at this station?" he asked. "Observing, recording, sharing your knowledge," Zinthar said, "and perhaps learning from our collection." Alan felt excitement building inside him. Alien predators? Species no human had ever seen before? This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. "There is one thing you should know," the second alien said. "The Veldari approach to research is clinical. We do not form attachments to study subjects. They are specimens, nothing more. Some would call our methods cold," added the third alien. Alan had worked with plenty of scientists like that before, people who saw animals as data points rather than living beings. He disagreed with that approach, but he could work with such people when needed. "When do we leave?" Alan asked. Zinthar made a gesture with his webbed hand. "Now, if you are willing." Alan looked at his small boat, at the ocean he knew so well, and at the 3 aliens who offered him the stars. He thought about all he might learn, all he might see. New creatures beyond his wildest dreams. "I need to pack some things," he said. "Everything you require will be provided," Zinthar said. Alan took a deep breath of salty air. He felt like he was standing at the edge of the greatest dive of his life. "Then I'm ready," he said. Little did he know that the depths he was about to explore held dangers far beyond anything Earth's oceans had prepared him for. The journey to the underwater station took less than an hour. Alan sat in a strange pod that moved through water faster than any human submarine. Through the clear walls, he watched as they went deeper and deeper. The sunlight faded until they were in complete darkness. Then, suddenly, lights appeared below them. Alan gasped. The research station was enormous. It stretched across the ocean floor like a small city, with domes and towers and long tubes connecting different sections. Lights glowed from every part of it, turning the dark water around it into a blue twilight. "Welcome to Station Deep Echo," Zinthar said. It is the largest Veldari research facility on your planet. How long has this been here? Alan asked, amazed that something so big could be hidden on Earth. 57 of your years, replied Zinthar. Your governments are aware of our presence but prefer to keep it secret from the general public. The pod docked with one of the larger domes. Water drained away, and a door opened. Alan followed the 3 Veldari into a large, circular room. The walls were lined with screens showing different parts of the station. About 20 aliens of different species moved around the room, working at control panels. This is the main hub, explained Zinthar. From here we monitor all research activities. Alan noticed that most of the aliens stopped what they were doing to stare at him. Some looked curious, others seemed nervous. Humans rarely visit us, Zinthar said, noticing Alan's observation. You are quite famous already. A shorter Veldari approached them. Chief Researcher, the Nexorian specimen is showing increased activity. It may have sensed the human's arrival. Zinthar's face showed no expression, but Alan sensed excitement in his voice. Excellent. We will take Dr. Carter there now. They led Alan through a series of passages. Along the way, he saw tanks and enclosures containing creatures he could never have imagined. Some looked like fish but with too many fins or eyes. Others resembled nothing he had ever seen before. These are specimens from 27 different worlds, the second Veldari told him. Each one an apex predator in its native environment. They stopped at a closed door much larger than the others. Zinthar placed his hand on a panel and the door slid open. Beyond it was an enormous tank that filled most of a dome the size of a football stadium. The water inside was darker than the rest of the station, with only a few lights near the bottom. Alan couldn't see what was inside. This is our pride, Zinthar said. The Nexorian Deathstalker. Only 4 exist in captivity across the entire galaxy. Alan stepped closer to the glass. As his eyes adjusted to the dimness, he made out a shape moving in the water. It was huge, at least 30 feet long. Its body was sleek and dark, like a massive eel, but with multiple fin-like appendages that propelled it with frightening speed. Its head was large and flat, with no visible eyes but rows of sensing organs that glowed faintly blue. It's magnificent, Alan whispered. It is the most efficient killing machine known to spacefaring civilizations, Zinthar said. Its home, World Nexor V, has oceans filled with dangerous creatures, but the Deathstalker rules them all. The creature suddenly turned and swam directly toward the glass where they stood. It opened its mouth, revealing 4 separate jaws lined with teeth that rotated like saw blades. It slammed against the glass, making a sound like thunder. Alan didn't flinch. The other aliens in the room had jumped back, but he stayed right where he was, studying the creature's movement patterns. Interesting reaction, Zinthar said, watching Alan closely. Most beings show fear when the Deathstalker charges. Alan shrugged. I've had great whites do the same thing. It's testing the barrier, seeing if it can get through. Basic predator behavior. You compare this to Earth creatures? Another Veldari asked, sounding surprised. Sure, Alan said. It's impressive, but not that different from our predators. Just bigger. The Veldari looked at each other. Alan could tell his response wasn't what they expected. Perhaps, Zinthar said slowly, we should put that theory to the test. Alan was given a small room near the main research area. It had a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out into the dark ocean. He sat on the edge of the bed, thinking about the Deathstalker and all the other strange creatures he had seen. A soft chime sounded, and the door slid open. A Veldari he hadn't met before stood there. This one was shorter than Zinthar and had lighter blue skin. I am Morel, assistant to Chief Researcher Zinthar, she said. You are requested in the meeting chamber. Alan followed Morel through the station. Other aliens stopped and watched as they passed. Some whispered to each other. Alan felt like an exhibit in a zoo. The meeting chamber was a round room with a table in the center. Zinthar sat there with 5 other aliens. None were Veldari. One looked like a large insect. Another had 4 arms and gray skin. The others were even stranger. "Dr. Carter, please join us," Zinthar said. "These are our senior researchers." Alan sat in the empty chair. The insect-like alien clicked its mandibles at him. "This is Dr. Carter's first day," Zinthar told the group. "Yet he has already provided an interesting perspective on the Nexorian specimen." "What perspective is that?" asked the four-armed alien. "He believes the Deathstalker is comparable to Earth predators," Zinthar said. He showed no fear when it charged the barrier. The alien researchers made various sounds of surprise or disbelief. "Impossible," said a tall, thin alien with pale skin. "The Deathstalker causes fear responses in all known species. It is why they are so effective as predators." "Not to me," Alan said simply. "It's big and has interesting adaptations, but its behavior is similar to sharks and other ocean hunters from Earth." "You truly believe this?" asked the insect alien. "I do," Alan replied. "Humans have lived alongside predators for our entire history. We've learned to understand them, to respect them without fearing them." The researchers exchanged glances. Alan couldn't read their expressions, but he sensed they didn't believe him. "Then perhaps you would be willing to demonstrate this understanding," Zinthar said, leaning forward. "We have been studying the Deathstalker for 3 cycles, but progress has been slow. 3 researchers have been killed attempting to collect data through direct observation." "You want me to go in the tank with it?" Alan asked, surprised. "With safety measures, of course," Zinthar said. "A protective cage, remote extraction capability, emergency stun systems." Alan thought about it. He had done similar work with great whites and other dangerous predators, but this was an alien creature with unknown capabilities. "What exactly would I be looking for?" he asked. "Behavioral patterns, feeding responses, social signals. The same data you collect from Earth predators," Zinthar said. The four-armed alien leaned toward Alan. "No one has survived more than 6 minutes of direct contact. The protective measures have proven inadequate." "I won't need them," Alan said. The room went silent. "Explain," Zinthar demanded. "Cages and protective gear change how predators perceive you," Alan explained. "They sense the barrier and try to break it. I'll need a wetsuit for the water temperature, basic diving gear, and that's it. No cage." "That would be suicide," the pale alien said. "No, it would be respect," Alan countered. "The Deathstalker is an apex predator. It responds to threats and prey. If I'm neither, it will be curious, not aggressive." "Fascinating theory," Zinthar said, "but extremely dangerous to test." "I'll take that risk," Alan said. "But I have conditions. I need 3 days to observe it from outside the tank first, and I go in alone. No interference." The researchers began talking all at once. Some seemed excited, others concerned. Zinthar held up a hand for silence. "Very well," he said. 3 days of observation, then you may enter the tank." After the meeting, the insect alien approached Alan in the hallway. "Many of us have placed bets on how long you will survive." It clicked at him. "The longest estimate is 8 minutes. Mine is 2. Alan smiled. "And what do I get when I prove you all wrong?" The alien's mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement. "The glory of being the first being to survive the Deathstalker. If you live, of course." For 3 days, Alan watched the Deathstalker. He spent hours sitting by the giant tank, making notes about how it moved, how it reacted to sounds, and how it ate the food the aliens dropped into its tank. The other researchers thought he was wasting time, but Alan knew better. Understanding came before interaction. He noticed many things. The Deathstalker had 6 sensing organs on its head that glowed brighter when it detected movement. It preferred to hide in the darkest part of the tank until prey appeared. It didn't just attack, randomly. It studied its prey first, circling slowly before striking. On the morning of the 4th day, Alan stood by the tank entrance. He wore a simple black wetsuit and carried a small oxygen tank with a breathing mask. Around him, alien researchers gathered to watch. "Our sensors will monitor your vital signs," Zinthar said. "At the first sign of distress, we will activate emergency extraction." "That won't be necessary," Alan replied. "Just make sure the recording systems are working. I want all of this documented." The insect alien clicked its mandibles nervously. "I have changed my bet to 4 minutes. Good luck, human." Alan nodded and stepped into the small chamber that would take him into the tank. Water began to fill around him as the door sealed shut. He put on his mask and checked his breathing. Then the inner door opened, and he swam into the Deathstalker's domain. The water was cold and dark. Alan turned on a small light attached to his wrist, providing just enough illumination to see a few feet ahead. He knew the Deathstalker would detect him immediately. The question was how it would respond. He didn't have to wait long. A faint blue glow appeared in the distance, growing brighter as the creature approached. Alan remained still, floating in place, controlling his breathing to stay calm. The massive predator circled him, its sensing organs pulsing with blue light. Through the glass walls of the tank, Alan could see the alien researchers watching. Some had moved back from the glass, as if fearing the Deathstalker might break through. Others pressed closer, fascinated by what was happening. The Deathstalker completed a full circle around Alan, then moved closer. It was testing him, trying to determine if he was prey, threat, or something else. Alan slowly raised his hand, palm out, moving it gently from side to side. The creature paused. Its sensing organs flashed brighter. Then, to the shock of everyone watching, it moved back slightly. Alan began to swim, slowly and deliberately, not toward the Deathstalker but parallel to it. He kept his movements smooth and non-threatening. The creature followed, matching his pace. Minutes passed. The Deathstalker hadn't attacked. Instead, it seemed curious about this strange being that didn't act like prey but wasn't a threat either. After 15 minutes, Alan could see the aliens outside the tank in a state of excitement. He had already survived longer than any previous researcher, but he wasn't done yet. He needed to establish true contact. Slowly, Alan turned to face the Deathstalker directly. It stopped moving, its sensing organs pulsing rapidly. This was the moment of greatest danger. Everything in the creature's instincts would tell it to attack a smaller being that challenged it. Alan extended his arm again, this time pointing toward the bottom of the tank. Then he began to descend. The Deathstalker watched for a moment, then followed. At the bottom of the tank was a large rock formation that the creature used as a resting place. Alan settled onto the sandy floor nearby, maintaining a respectful distance. The Deathstalker circled once more, then lowered itself to the ground as well. Outside the tank, the alien researchers were in chaos. What they were witnessing was impossible, according to everything they knew about the Deathstalker. Alan remained at the bottom of the tank for another 20 minutes. The Deathstalker stayed nearby, occasionally swimming in a small circle before returning to its spot. It wasn't friendly. Alan knew better than to think that, but it had accepted his presence. When Alan finally swam back to the entrance chamber, the Deathstalker followed at a distance, watching as he left its territory. As the water drained from the chamber and the door opened, Alan was met with stunned silence from the gathered aliens. News of Alan's success spread quickly through the research station. Aliens from all sections came to the Deathstalker tank to see the miracle for themselves. Many didn't believe the stories until they saw Alan enter the tank again the next day. This time, Alan brought a small camera that he carefully positioned on the tank floor. He wanted to record the Deathstalker's movements up close. When he entered the water, the creature seemed to recognize him. It circled once, then settled into the same pattern they had established before. "Remarkable," Zinthar said as he watched, from the control room. "The human has somehow formed a connection with the specimen." "Not a connection," said Morell, who had been studying Alan's notes. "He calls it mutual respect. He says predators recognize other predators." "Humans are not predators," argued another Veldari scientist. "They are omnivores with limited physical capabilities. Perhaps we have misunderstood them," Morell suggested. In the tank, Alan was slowly moving closer to the Deathstalker each day. By the 5th day, he could swim within 10 feet of it without triggering an aggressive response. On the 6th day, he tried something new. When the Deathstalker approached, Alan held out his hand, palm up, and remained perfectly still. The creature paused, its sensing organs pulsing rapidly. Then, in a move that caused the watching aliens to gasp, it extended one of its smaller appendages toward Alan's hand. They didn't touch, but they came within inches of each other. It was a moment of communication between two completely different species. After an hour in the tank, Alan returned to the control room where a crowd of alien researchers waited. Their attitudes had changed. Where before there had been dismissal or mockery, now there was curiosity and respect. "How are you doing this?" asked the insect alien who had bet on Alan's quick death. "The Deathstalker has killed 27 different species in controlled tests." "It's not about domination," Alan explained. "On Earth we learned long ago that you don't conquer apex predators, you understand them, you learn their language." "Language?" Zinthar seemed skeptical. "The Deathstalker has no language." "Not words," Alan said, "but body position, movement patterns, territoriality signals. These are all forms of communication. The Deathstalker tells me what it's thinking through how it moves its body and how its sensing organs glow." Alan showed them his notes and the recordings he had made. He pointed out patterns that the alien scientists had missed in their years of study. "See how the third and fourth sensors pulse when it's curious? And how they stay steady when it's hunting? Or how it positions its body at an angle when it's establishing territory?" The aliens studied his observations with growing interest. "Humans evolved alongside predators on Earth," Alan continued. "For millions of years we had to understand them to survive. It became instinct for us. We can read predator body language without even thinking about it. Could you teach this skill?" Morell asked. Alan nodded. "Some of it, yes. The rest comes from experience." Over the next few days, Alan began training a small group of alien researchers in his methods. They watched from outside the tank as he demonstrated different approaches to the Deathstalker. On the 10th day, Alan did something that shocked everyone. He entered the tank without his breathing equipment. Instead, he used a special mask that Morell had designed based on Alan's suggestions. It allowed for more freedom of movement and better visibility. The Deathstalker approached him as usual, but this time it came even closer. Alan remained perfectly still as the massive predator moved around him, its sensing organs just inches from his face. "It's scanning him," Morell said, watching the monitors, learning his biological makeup. "Is he in danger?" asked one of the other researchers. "I don't think so," Morell replied. "Look at its posture, it's curious, not aggressive." In the tank, Alan and the Deathstalker continued their silent communication, each learning about a species from across the galaxy. But not everyone was pleased with this development. From his private chamber, Zinthar watched the monitors with growing frustration. Zinthar sat alone in his private chamber, watching recordings of Alan with the Deathstalker. For 2 weeks, the human had entered the tank daily. Each time he got closer to the creature. Now Alan could actually touch the Deathstalker's outer skin without triggering an attack. It made no sense. Zinthar had spent years studying the Deathstalker. He had developed theories about its behavior that were respected across the galaxy. And now this human from a backward planet was proving all his work wrong. "Chief Researcher?" Morell's voice came through the communication system. "The Council is requesting your daily report." "Tell them there is nothing new to report," Zinthar snapped. "But Dr. Carter's progress with the Deathstalker is a temporary anomaly," Zinthar interrupted. "The creature is simply confused by his alien scent. It will remember its true nature soon enough." Morell hesitated. The other researchers disagree. They believe Dr. Carter has made a genuine breakthrough in interspecies communication. Zinthar turned off the communication system without responding. He couldn't accept that a simple human could succeed where he had failed. There had to be a way to prove the Deathstalker was still the ultimate killing machine he had always claimed it was. Meanwhile, Alan was preparing for another session with the Deathstalker. He had named it Echo because of how it mimicked his movements sometimes. He knew giving it a name wasn't scientific, but it helped him think of the creature as an individual, rather than just a specimen. "You're going in again today?" asked one of the alien researchers, a squat purple being named Dorv. Yes, Alan replied. Echo is starting to trust me. I think I can teach it to respond to simple signals today. Remarkable, Dorv said. I have studied predators on 12 worlds but never seen anything like this. Alan smiled as he put on his wetsuit. Humans have always had a special relationship with predators. On Earth, we've trained wolves to become dogs, used falcons for hunting, and learned to work with all kinds of dangerous animals. Yet your species has no natural weapons, Dorv noted. No claws or fangs or poison. We have our brains, Alan said. And empathy. Never underestimate the power of understanding another creature's perspective. As Alan prepared to enter the tank, he didn't notice Zinthar entering the control room. The chief researcher spoke quietly to the technician monitoring the tank systems, who looked concerned but nodded. Alan entered the chamber and waited as it filled with water. When the inner door opened, he swam into the tank as he had done many times before. Echo was waiting near the bottom, its sensing organs glowing with a soft blue light that Alan had come to recognize as a greeting. He swam down to the creature, moving slowly and calmly as always. Echo circled him once, then settled into position, a few feet away. Alan began the routine they had established, moving his hands in patterns that Echo would mimic with its smaller appendages. Everything seemed normal until Alan noticed the water temperature changing. It was getting colder quickly. Echo noticed it too. The Deathstalker's sensing organs changed from blue to a pulsing red. It began to move in agitated circles. Something's wrong, Alan said into his communication device. The water temperature is dropping. It's agitating, Echo. There was no response. Alan looked toward the control room window and saw Zinthar standing there, watching intently. The other researchers seemed to be arguing with him. Suddenly, the lights in the tank went out. In the darkness, Alan could only see Echo's sensing organs glowing bright red. The Deathstalker was now moving faster, clearly distressed by the changing conditions. Control room, what's happening? Alan called. Restore the lights and temperature. Still no response. Alan realized with growing horror that this was deliberate. Someone had changed the tank conditions on purpose, and now he was trapped in darkness with an increasingly agitated apex predator. Through the faint emergency lights around the tank edge, Alan could see Zinthar dismissing the protesting researchers from the control room. They were being locked out. The Deathstalker let out a sound Alan had never heard before, a high-pitched wail that vibrated through the water. It was a hunting call. In the darkness of the tank, Alan fought to stay calm. Panic would only make things worse. He could sense Echo moving around him, disturbed by the sudden changes. The water was now so cold that Alan's limbs were beginning to feel numb. Echo, Alan called softly, knowing the creature could sense vibrations in the water. It's okay. It's still me. The Deathstalker's sensing organs glowed bright red in the darkness, casting an eerie light that barely reached a few feet. Alan could see. The creature was in hunting mode now, its four jaws slightly open, ready to attack. Outside the tank, chaos had erupted. Morell and the other researchers were pounding on the control room door, demanding that Zinthar restore the normal tank conditions. You will kill them both, Morell shouted. Open this door immediately. Inside the control room, Zinthar watched. The heat sensors that showed Alan and the Deathstalker as glowing shapes in the dark water. The creature's true nature will reveal itself, he muttered. No predator can be tamed, especially not by a human. In the tank, Alan remembered his training with sharks during ocean blackouts. Predators relied on familiar patterns. If he could remind Echo of their established routine, he might have a chance. Slowly, Alan moved his hand in the pattern they had practiced, even though he wasn't sure Echo could see it in the darkness. Then he moved his whole body in a slow circle, the way they began each session. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the red glow of Echo's sensing organs dimmed slightly. The creature was hesitating. Alan continued the familiar movements, fighting against the cold. His oxygen supply was limited, and the freezing water was making it hard to think clearly. but he had to keep going. "That's it," he said softly. "Remember me? Remember our work together?" Echo circled him, closer than before. Alan could feel the water moving as the massive predator passed by. One wrong move and those rotating teeth would tear him apart. In the control room, Zinthar leaned closer to the monitor. "Attack," he whispered. "Show your true nature." But Echo didn't attack. Instead, it started mimicking Alan's movements just as they had practiced. The red glow began to fade, returning to the blue color that indicated curiosity rather than aggression. Alan felt a surge of hope. Then, a loud alarm blared through the station. The sudden noise startled Echo, and its sensing organs flashed bright, red again. It darted toward Alan with frightening speed. Alan didn't try to flee. Instead, he faced the creature directly and extended his hand in their trust gesture. Echo stopped just inches from him, its massive head nearly touching Alan's palm. For 3 long seconds, neither moved. Then slowly, Echo lowered its head and touched Alan's hand with one of its sensing organs. At that moment, a loud crack echoed through the tank. Alan looked up to see a fracture spreading across the glass wall. The temperature change had caused the material to weaken. "The tank is failing," someone shouted over the station's communication system. Water began to spray from the crack. As the pressure changed, more cracks appeared. Alan knew he had only seconds before the entire tank shattered. In the control room, Zinthar finally realized the danger. He frantically pressed buttons trying to activate the emergency containment system, but it was too late. With a thunderous sound, the tank wall gave way. Millions of gallons of water surged into the station corridor, carrying Alan and Echo with it. Alarms blared throughout the facility as emergency doors began closing to contain the flood. Alan was swept along in the powerful current, tumbling and spinning. He lost sight of Echo in the chaos. His air tank hit something hard and tore away from him. He had only the air in his lungs now. As the water carried him down a long corridor, Alan saw the emergency doors closing ahead. He would be trapped if he didn't move quickly. With his last strength, he swam toward a gap in the closing doors. He squeezed through just as they slammed shut behind him. Gasping for breath in a pocket of air, Alan found himself in a partially flooded section of the station. Emergency lights flashed red and yellow. The station was in full crisis mode. Then he heard a familiar sound, the high-pitched call of the Deathstalker. Echo had made it through as well. And somewhere in this section was Zinthar, who had tried to kill them both. Alan waded through knee-deep water following the emergency lights. The station creaked and groaned around him. More water was leaking in through damaged seals. He needed to find higher ground. Warning. Section 12 compromised. All personnel evacuate immediately, announced a calm computer voice in several alien languages. Alan heard splashing behind him. He turned to see Echo swimming through the flooded corridor. The Deathstalker's sensing organs glowed blue again. It wasn't hunting, it was following him. "Hey there," Alan said softly. "Looks like we're both in trouble now." Echo moved closer, its massive body sliding easily through the water. In the open corridor, Alan could truly appreciate how huge the creature was. Yet it made no move to attack. A crash sounded from ahead. Alan moved cautiously toward a junction in the corridor. There he found Zinthar trapped under a fallen piece of equipment. The Veldari's leg was pinned and he was struggling to free himself as water rose around him. When Zinthar saw Alan, his eyes widened with fear. "Stay back," he shouted. Then he saw Echo appear behind Alan, and true terror filled his face. "No! Keep that monster away from me." Alan assessed the situation quickly. "You tried to kill me," he said calmly. "You changed the tank conditions on purpose." "The experiment required extreme testing," Zinthar said desperately. "I needed to prove my theories." "You were wrong," Alan said. "Echo isn't just a killing machine. No predator is. They're complex beings with intelligence and the capacity to learn." The water was rising faster now. Zinthar would drown if he couldn't get free. Despite everything, Alan couldn't let that happen. I'm going to help you, Alan decided, but I need Echo's help too. That's insane, Zinthar cried. It will kill us both. Alan ignored him. He turned to Echo and began using the hand signals they had practiced. He pointed to the debris trapping Zinthar, then made a pushing motion. Echo watched, its sensing organs pulsing. Then, to Zinthar's amazement, it moved forward and positioned its massive body against the fallen equipment. When I count to 3, push with all your strength, Alan told Zinthar. Echo will push too. This is impossible, Zinthar whispered, but he placed his hands on the debris. 1, 2, 3. Alan and Zinthar pushed while Echo thrust its powerful body against the equipment. Slowly, the heavy piece moved, and Zinthar pulled his injured leg free. As they worked together, the emergency doors at the end of the corridor opened. Morel and a group of researchers rushed in, then froze at the sight before them. A human and the galaxy's deadliest predator working together to save the alien who had tried to kill them both. Evacuation vessels are ready, Morel announced, staring in wonder. But we never expected this. We need to move quickly, Alan said, helping Zinthar to stand. The station is failing. As they made their way to the evacuation area, other aliens stopped and stared at the strange procession. Alan leading the way, Zinthar limping behind, and Echo swimming alongside them in the flooded corridors. When they reached the evacuation vessels, a new problem arose. There's no transport. Equipped for the Deathstalker, Morel said. It was never meant to leave the tank. Alan looked at Echo, who was watching him with glowing blue sensors. Then I'll stay with it, he decided. There must be another way out. No, Zinthar said suddenly. I was wrong about you, human. And about the Deathstalker. He turned to Farrell. Combine vessels 3 and 4. Remove the dividing wall. It will create enough space. As the station continued to fail around them, the aliens worked quickly to modify 2 vessels into one large enough for Echo. Alan stayed with the creature, keeping it calm during the chaos. Finally, everything was ready. Alan guided Echo into the special vessel and climbed in beside it. The door sealed behind them. As they launched away from the collapsing station, Alan placed his hand gently on Echo's side. The creature's sensing organs glowed with a blue light he had never seen before. Not curiosity or hunting, but something new, something like trust. 3 weeks later, Alan stood before the Galactic Council. Representatives from 50 alien species watched as he presented his findings. Humans do not dominate apex predators, he explained. We understand them. We respect them. And sometimes, we befriend them. Beside him stood Echo, now fitted with a special water-breathing apparatus that allowed it to survive in air for short periods. The Deathstalker's sensing organs glowed bright blue as it surveyed the council chamber. From this day forward, announced the council leader, humans will be classified as predator communicators, a rare and valuable trait. And Alan Carter will lead a new division focused on interspecies understanding. As Alan looked out at the assembled aliens, he couldn't help but smile. They had left a human alone with a killer predator, and something had indeed gone very wrong, just not in the way anyone had expected.